Hello, everyone, and welcome to another IWSCC podcast. I'm so excited for this particular one because I've got some good friends here with me today. But first of all, I just want to share that our podcast is produced and brought to you by Remote Video Production. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we have ASL interpretation brought to you by Maple Communications. So I have the pleasure of having my friends and my colleagues from the Supplier Diversity Alliance Canada, or SDAC is how we'll probably refer to it throughout the rest of the podcast. So if you hear SDAC, that's referring to Supplier Diversity Alliance Council. So I'm going to let these folks introduce themselves. We unfortunately don't have Cassandra Dorrington with us here today. Last minute wasn't able to make it, but she does make up the rest of the Supplier Diversity Alliance Council crew. And so we're Supplier Diversity Alliance Canada. Now I'm saying it wrong the entire time. Supplier Diversity Alliance Canada, I apologize. So she will be here at a later date to chat a little bit more. But today we have Sylvia Pintak and Darrell Schuurman, and I guess we'll get started. So Sylvia, if you can take a minute, introduce yourself. Just tell us a little bit about yourself personally, maybe something you don't always share.
Thank you, Deidre. So happy to be here and be talking to your audiences together. So my name is Sylvia Pintak, as Deidre mentioned. I'm the president and CEO of WB Canada, Women Business Enterprises Canada Council. And it is my absolute honor and privilege to be supporting Canadian women-owned businesses and helping them access corporate and government supply chains. Something personal about me. I'm an immigrant. You can hear it in my accent. I actually came to Canada in 2006. And when I moved here, we had zero contacts in Canada. So fast forward a couple years later, I'm actually fortunate to have lots of friends, not only business friends, but personal friends, fantastic community. And I feel privileged to be able to live my life in Canada and to be impacting communities across the country.
Thank you, Sylvia. I'm always so impressed with people who just pick up and move to another country. And I'm really, always, we have a couple of suppliers that have done that. And it just always amazes me. Were your kids born yet when you moved here?
Yeah, so my older one was born in Slovakia, which is where I'm from, and my younger one was born in Canada. So I have one of each.
So how old was your oldest one when you came? Like, how old was this child when you decided to pack up and move to Canada?
She was 2, and I do have a heartbreaking story because I'm a very family-oriented, so my family was always over, visiting and playing with her when she was little, and then we moved just before she was turning 3 years, so she could grasp the idea of having a birthday where nobody from family came, and she was really devastated by that. And she was asking me, "Oh, nobody likes me. Nobody came to my birthday party." It broke my heart as a mom. That we didn't have friends, we didn't have community. So I made it my life's mission to build a community for my kids to make sure they never feel alone.
And now you're working on building a community for thousands of women. So I guess you're pretty good at it.
I
Darrell,
hope so.
Yeah. Take a minute, please, and introduce yourself, what you do, and just tell us a little something we might not already know about you.
Great. Well, thank you, Deidre. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So my name is Darrell Schuurman. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the CGLCC, which is Canada's LGBT plus Chamber of Commerce. So we represent over 100,000 LGBT plus owned businesses, coast to coast to coast. Our mandate really is to help to create a truly inclusive Canadian economy by creating opportunities for LGBT owned businesses to compete and actually contribute to our economy. And so, we do a variety of different programs to achieve that mandate. One of the main project areas that we work on is supplier diversity. So we act as the certifying body for LGBT plus businesses across the country. So we've been certifying since 2014, but our organization has been around since 2003. So I start to feel a little old when I say that, but so we have been around for a while, and again, finding different ways to support the opportunity to economically empower our businesses. Um, a little bit something you don't know about me. I feel, Deidre, we've known each other so long. I feel that you know everything about me. I don't
Oh, come
know.
on. No way.
Maybe not as dramatic as Sylvia, but during the pandemic, as many people did, we escaped the city. We escaped Toronto and moved to kind of the rural countryside in Ontario, and I'm the proud dog daddy now of two big dogs. And so I know both Sylvia and Deidre have seen my dogs make appearances on these Zoom calls throughout. So I purposely, blocked them out of the room today. So this is really just a warning in case they do get excited, and they might try to voice their participation somehow in this podcast. So just giving you some warning here.
And what are their names again, Darrell?
Eddie and Elsie.
Oh, yes. I love those names.
I was just talking with my partner this morning. We think we're going to start creating an Instagram account for them. We figure, everybody else is doing it. We need to do it as well. So we're gonna we're one of those people. Yes, we're those people.
Or about to become.
There we go.
Well, thank you guys so much. Sylvia, can you take a moment and just talk a wee bit about Cassandra's organization so that we don't leave her out? As part of the SDAC, I think we should include what she's doing, because she was planning to be here and right up until about 10 minutes before we started, so she's had a bit of a delay. So if you could take a moment, that would be great, Sylvia.
Absolutely. So CAMSI, or Canadian Aboriginal and Minority Supplier Council, is actually one of the oldest councils, or the oldest council in Canada. They were founded in early 2000s, and they actually spearheaded supplier diversity efforts in Canada. Then later, other councils were developed. So Canadian Aboriginal Minority Council actually certifies Aboriginal and visible minority communities. And similar to other councils, they provide support for corporations, governments who do have supplier diversity programs, and also connect suppliers to supply chains.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting when Cassandra tells her story about her early days in supplier diversity and what the landscape was like. And if anyone is interested, you can hear that on, I think, our very first podcast. You can check in to see what Cassandra has to say about the early days of supplier diversity, which isn't all that long ago. Darrell, we're not that old, okay? We're just not.
I think, Deidre, you should introduce IWSCC too.
Yes. I actually usually do, and I gapped on that today. So yes, thank you, Sylvia. For those of you who aren't aware, I am the, founder of the Inclusive Workplace and Supply Council of Canada. And so what we do is we work with veteran organizations, veteran-owned businesses and disabled-owned businesses, and we put them together with corporate purchasers that are looking to diversify their supply chain. We build capacity and support for their supplier diversity programs for both corporates, as well as helping our suppliers do better things towards getting connected with corporates. So this is actually my first meeting this morning, and I'm already running out of words. I have no idea what the rest of the day is going to be looking like. But at any rate, so the 4 supply councils, and thank you, Sylvia, make up the Supplier Diversity Alliance Canada. And so, Darrell, since you have the most experience with the SDAC, why don't you share with us when that started and how long has it been around, and what really is this Supplier Diversity Alliance Canada?
Yeah, I think that we started having conversations back as early as, I think, 2015 to see how we can kind of work together a little bit more closer and really try to advance supplier diversity across the country. So, as mentioned, back then there was just the 3 core, so WB Canada, CAMSI, and CGLCC. And so really working to find, what can we do to continue to support and create greater awareness and advancement of supplier diversity. And so I guess that our first kind of formal event, and this is before we were a formal organization or an incorporated organization, our first event, actually, to be honest, was a day on the Hill. the three organizations decided that advocacy was going to be a key piece of what we wanted to do, advocacy at the federal government level. And so collectively, we worked together to host an event on the Day on the Hill in Ottawa, and bring together MPs and ministers and senators, and really educate them on what supplier diversity is and why it's important to the Canadian economy. So it's funny because that was our first event. We really didn't have, there wasn't a structured around SDAC perhaps, and there wasn't necessarily as kind of the core pillars as we have now. But that was kind of the first thing that we said, this is really important for us to do. We know that we need to get in front of the federal government and the leaders to help to create that, start to create that greater awareness and try to drive change. I think from that exercise, what we realized is there is value for us to be working. And we knew that there was value for us to be working together, but I think that just reinforced it. And what we decided to do is really try to formalize that engagement. So over the next kind of, I guess, year and a half or so, we worked to create a formal incorporated nonprofit organization made up of launched and founded by at the time the three councils. And so that took a little while in terms of establishing the structure, the governance model, all of that. So it wasn't until 2019 that we became a formal organization known as Supplier Diversity Alliance Canada, or SDAC. I talked about advocacy being one of the core pillars. I think the other kind of core pillars were research and education. So really trying to find out, to bring kind of that third-party empirical data to the business case, so that we had strong data to back up why supplier diversity was important and why governments and corporations and SMEs needed to take this seriously. And then the third was really around connections. Really, how could we build connections and create opportunities for our collective stakeholders? And so that really was through and continues to be through events. And so we do a signature event, which is Connect, Collaborate, Succeed. I think we've been doing that now. I should have looked this up, Deidre. I forget how long we've been doing it now, but we've been doing it for a while. It is a great opportunity for us to bring our collective suppliers, corporates together, to be able to not only learn, but to be able to connect, as the name suggests, and be able to do business with each other, not only with our corporate partners, but also across our supplier bases as well. So that is something that we've continued to do over the years, and we will continue to do with the upcoming event in just over a month, I believe it is. So, But anyway, that's a little bit of a background of where we started.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so now there are the 4 supply councils involved. We did another Day on the Hill just this past May, which was lots of fun, and we had some great results from that. It was great to see the difference in responses from back the original Day on the Hill, which of course I wasn't at, but I learned about how it went, to when we were there just recently. You can tell that government is starting to really think about supplier diversity. They're not quite sure where it's all at yet, and everyone needs to learn more. There are so many people involved in so many moving parts, but it's great to see that some of that advocacy that we've been doing for the last couple of years is really starting to hit the mark. So that's fantastic. And we do have an event coming up in October, as Darrell said, on the 14th. It's here in Toronto. What's the address? Is it 100 King at the BMO building?
Yeah, so it's at BMO building.
I think so, yeah.
So it's 100 King. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And so we'll be having that. And that's going to be a little bit different than our normal setup for Connect, Collaborate, Succeed, because we're going to have a panel made out of suppliers. So it's going to be suppliers talking to suppliers in the panel. And then we'll get to our matchmaking roundtables that I think are so It's just fantastic. And it's kind of the meat and potatoes of supplier diversity. It's the time when suppliers get to sit down in front of corporate purchasers who specifically want to add diversely owned businesses into their supply chain and pitch their businesses. And so you're one-on-one with these decision makers for these large organizations. And that's been always my favorite part of supplier diversity. That's how I got introduced to it, was coming to an event as a supplier and going, holy crap, I can't believe the people I get to talk to in this organization. Like, how do you get to, these people at this level in such a large organization? So that's October 14th. So keep an eye out on social media and from all of your supply councils to learn how to register and make sure that you're there. But I know you guys are doing other events. And so this is your chance to kind of advertise what you guys have coming up next. So Sylvia, what have you got going on this fall?
Fall is a very busy season always at VB Canada. So first of all, we participate in a lot of corporate initiatives. So there's a lot of corporations from Stellantis, Toyota, to CBRE and others who are hosting their own events where all diverse suppliers are invited. So no matter what council you are with, you can attend and participate in those matchmakers and trade shows. We also, at VB Canada, we are hosting 3 very important events. So first one is Meet the Buyer and Matchmaker with HSBC specifically. HSBC is new to supplier diversity, so they are looking to meet with suppliers. And this is something that I believe even Deidre, like your community does, like really connecting suppliers directly to specific corporations. Mm-hmm. So very important events as we are introducing corporations to the pool of suppliers. The second one is the larger B2B matchmaker, which we are hosting October 12th, so just 2 days before SDAC event. It is a virtual event as opposed to SDAC, and we do have a lot of our corporate members participating, meeting with the suppliers. So this is the matchmaker of the year for us, for VB Canada. All our VB suppliers are welcome to join. So it is a big undertaking for us because, as you can imagine, a lot of one-on-one meetings happening. We are inviting not only supplier diversity professionals, but also a lot of category buyers. So it's a massive event to coordinate. And last but not least, we are working on our annual national conference. So our conference is in person this year, finally, after 3 years. So our conference is in Toronto. And we are just so excited to get our community back together. We are featuring lots of sessions, training, education, inspiration, but we also will have plenty of networking opportunities as well as trade show. So just before COVID, in 2019, we did our first ever trade show, and then we only were able to network virtually. So I'm very, very excited to bring our community back together into the same room. I know other councils, CAMC, CGLCC already had their live events, but we are yet to have our first conference in this post-COVID world. Keeping our fingers crossed that nothing goes wrong and we don't have another lockdown. Really, really bravely, going towards in-person only event this year. So once again, it's November 9 and 10 in Toronto. Registration is currently open and more information is at wbecanada.ca.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a lot on the go for the next couple months, plus all your regular work.
Oh, yeah. Lots of other events, webinars, workshops.
Yes, yeah. Of course. All right, Darrell, what's CGLCC got on the go this fall?
I thought we had a lot. Now I'm exhausted after hearing all of Sylvia's programming. So, congratulations, Sylvia. That's exciting to hear. So we, similarly, we work continually with our corporate partners that Sylvia touched on at the start. So, again, really working with those corporate partners to engage our suppliers to participate in their events. So, CBRE, the City of Toronto, those are a couple of things that are coming up this month. And similar to WBE Canada, we have kind of our regular programming that we run kind of every month, so recurring programming like our Meet the Buyers program that is an opportunity for suppliers to meet kind of one-on-one with a featured corporate. And so really an opportunity for our suppliers to learn more about the corporation and learn more about how to do business with them. We've been doing, and we have coming up some great sessions about doing business with the federal government. We are doing that both in English, and for those of our suppliers or any suppliers that are based in Quebec, we're doing a special series in partnership with Evol out of Quebec, and specifically for doing business with the government of Canada, but purely in French. The sessions will be in French. So that's coming up in October. I guess our signature event, one of our signature events, is coming up in November, November 11th, which is our annual Black and White Gala. So this is really our opportunity to, celebrate and recognize LGBT businesses and business leaders who are instrumental in trying to create opportunities and advance our mandate. And so it is taking place in Toronto. Similarly, we'll be back in person. We did a smaller version in person last year, but we'll be back in person full on this year in Toronto again. So really excited about that. It's always a fun time. Deidre, I think you've been a couple times, so it's a great way to celebrate.
I have it on our calendar. So much fun. We always have fun at these events, but I do find the CGLCC, everyone's just, it's just dressed up so fantastically and just having such a great time. And all the events are lots of fun. Sorry, I interrupted you, Darrell. What else?
No, I was just going to say one other thing that we're working on for 2023 is so on a I think we've done for the last few years several trade missions. We just wrapped up our trade mission to the U.S., where we had several businesses come down to the U.S. And meet with large Fortune 500 companies looking to actively do business with diverse owned businesses. So we are working on our 2023 trade mission to, for the first time ever, to the UK and to the EU. So that's likely going to be in early March. And so I think that's something that's really exciting, not only for our businesses here, but for our partners across Europe. Really try to create stronger connections and opportunities for suppliers on both sides. So that's kind of some of the CGLCC things. I just wanted to highlight, because again, I know that Cassandra is not here. They are having their annual gala. I talked about our gala. CAMSI's annual gala is taking place October 14th as well, so the same day as the Connect, Collaborate, Succeed, the SDAC event. So that's taking place in Toronto on October 14th. All of these, I shouldn't say all of these, some of these events you can find on not only on the individual councils' websites, but also on Supplier Diversity Alliance.ca.
Canada? SDAC.ca.
Supplier Diversity Alliance.ca website. And so if you're looking for more information on some of those larger events, you can also visit the SDAC website.
Thank you, Darrell. I was going to ask you to share a little bit about Cassandra's event too, so that's perfect. So as you can tell, we're heading into a fairly busy networking season in the supplier diversity world. So I want to ask you both, what is networking really, and why is it so important to businesses? What are your thoughts on that? Sylvia.
It's so funny. Actually, I'm going to say to tell our listeners that at SDAC we have this thing where we all tend to jump on questions. So we are just being really considerate.
Trying to be polite for once.
It's too early in the morning. Maybe that's what it is.
For that cutthroatness.
Okay, so networking is actually the lifeline of businesses, because without your network, without the community and support for your business, it is really difficult to operate, win any contracts. If they don't know about you, they can't buy from you. So this is why SDAC and each individual councils, we focus on networking and we prioritize it, and we really invest our tools, resources, and our people into creating these opportunities for our suppliers. So when it comes to networking, I've seen it and I witnessed that in our community, women-owned businesses who show up at the events, who come to the webinars to meet the corporations, they actually get known and they become top of mind for different projects and opportunities out there. So it is very important that suppliers develop connections into the corporate and government supply chains, but also with the councils and also with each other, with the supplier community. So networking is a crucial and critical part of running a business. And this is what supplier diversity councils are really good at, helping you to remove those barriers, red tape, and help you build your business connections.
Darrell, Darrell, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I think I completely agree with Sylvia. It is very much such an important aspect for any entrepreneur or small business, that's trying to grow their business, that, that they actively engage and participate in networking. And that is, as Sylvia mentioned, such a core piece of all of the programming that all of the councils do. And so, my recommendation is that, we do this, but the suppliers need to actively engage and show up and participate. If you're truly looking to grow your business, this is such an important aspect. And I really want to also build on what Sylvia said there at the end, was that, it's not only about engaging with corporate partners and our government partners, but also with each other. Each of the councils, we do our own events, which is an opportunity for our shared communities that have these shared experiences to be able to come together. But equally important for us to, again, cross-pollinate, if you will, and for our diverse suppliers to meet with each other's diverse suppliers, because those opportunities are also equally important. And some of the success we've seen over the years with suppliers being able to come together, collaborate, and perhaps do joint ventures or bid on larger contracts. Those are opportunities that you just don't necessarily get if you're not out there and actively networking and meeting with other people.
Absolutely. So what are the building blocks of good networking? Like what would a good networking experience look like for you guys?
I can start. First of all, you definitely want to nail down your pitch. Because if you can't explain who you are, what you do under 1 minute, it is going to be very difficult for you to promote your business and to create the right visibility for your business. So I do believe it starts with the homework, practice, and even get feedback on your pitch. Find somebody who is not in your space, not in your industry, who doesn't understand what you do, and pitch your pitch to them and get their feedback, then get their input. Try it with your kids, try it with your family members. If the normal people around you don't understand what you do, then you need to work on your pitch. So once you have your pitch, then you definitely need to show up. And I would have to say that don't be salesy. Don't focus on selling your product or service so much, but focus on creating experiences. As we are coming out of pandemic, it is going to be very important to build that, becoming memorable, becoming likable, and becoming somebody that people feel like they can trust you. So building that type of relationships with people, having fun experiences with them, talking about not just the business and not just how amazing you are, but focusing on them, asking questions, asking what their needs are, how can you help, how can you support, coming from that place of support, service, contribution. That is going to make a huge difference as you are building your network and building your connections out there in the marketplace. So I always say to our suppliers, there's a lot of companies that do what you do. So how do you stand out? how are you memorable? Why should they pick up the phone and call you? Why should they remember your business card? So think about that unique differentiator that you have from everybody else in the room. Think about that unique experience that you want to create with the buyer. So I've seen suppliers use interesting strategies. So one of my favorites is remembering details about your contacts, about your connections. Remembering that, for example, that corporate representative was sick, and asking them how they are doing, remembering a detail about their family, hey, is your kid going to university now, right? So how are they doing? How is their first year? How are their first months? So really having something personal that you can latch into, that you can use to build up the connection, that is going to be super useful. And just after all, I remember to have fun. Building your network is not just about selling and pitching and about making sure you make a sale. It is a long-term game. And it is about building connections and building your network and building it so strong that when people look at your category, look at the product or service you are selling, you are the top of mind. And they not only buy from you, but they also get to recommend you to others who are looking for your products and services. So anybody you meet is a potential a person who can refer you, who can connect you. So look at your network this way.
So, Darrell, do you see benefit in pitching to the same company more than once or often or regularly? What would you say for that type of circumstance? One of the things that happens in the supplier diversity world, and I'm going to be honest here, is that suppliers tend to see the same corporates over the course of a year or two. They may run into these corporate members a couple of times. So is it worthwhile to pitch to them again? I do hear suppliers saying, well, I already talked to them last November, so I'm not going to bother this time. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, and Sylvia kind of touched on it. This is about creating relationships. It's not just about a sales pitch, and I think if you just approach it as a sales pitch, I don't know how successful that's going to be in the long run. I think we have to treat these as relationships, and you're trying to build a long-term relationship. And that involves, not only, again, to what Sylvia talked about, actually truly listening to them, kind of that active listening, if you will, and making mental notes about and remembering kind of that little tidbits about those people. But that means that you have to engage with them on an ongoing, regular basis. So just meeting somebody and pitching. I used air quotes. Sorry, for those of you that are just listening, you can't see. I'm using air quotes. But if you're just pitching, I don't think you're necessarily creating that long lasting relationship. So you need to be in there and constantly, continually, meeting with these people, talking to these people, but not just pitching your business. Creating that. Again, I use the relationship word, but continuing to build that long-lasting relationship so that when those opportunities do become available, you are top of mind. And you're right, Deidre. We do hear this a lot from our suppliers that say, "Well, I've already talked to them on many times and many, many times," but that is what it's going to take, and very rarely do we see those successes, and they do happen occasionally where they'll meet with a partner once and they'll end up winning a contract. But for the most part, it's those relationships that are going to happen over a longer period of time. Because if you think about it, that corporate partner or even that other small business gets to really know you. They learn more about you. They learn more about your business, your ethics, and all of that, which are really important if they're looking to engage with you. So long-winded answer to your question, but yes, I think it is important for us to continually, engage with those businesses and build those. Treat this networking not just as kind of one-off networking, but how can we build these relationships?
I always tell people this is not a get rich quick scheme. You don't just sign up and sit on the couch and wait for the contracts to come pouring in. You have to get out there. And I think, as Kathy Cheng says, and has said this on a past podcast, you don't just go to the party or the dance. You have to get in there and dance and have a drink maybe, and, have some snacks and chat with people. You can't just stand on the sideline and then wonder why you don't have any business coming out of this world. So, but what would you guys consider to be an example of bad networking? What is not to do in the area of networking from a supplier perspective right now?
I think everything opposite to what we were saying. So
everything we just said, but not.
But the other side of it.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start, right? Because we've seen a lot of bad examples. So definitely just doing a pitch, just going ahead without listening, without taking cues from people around you, and not understanding that you are annoying, right? Or disrespectful, etc. So going over your time is a great example for in-person networking. So we used to control that in the digital space over the past 2 years, but I'm kind of getting worried about, going to live events, because some suppliers tend to take the entire 5-minute time that is allocated for everybody around the table. That is very disrespectful, very unprofessional, and it actually tends to harm your brand more than help it. So other suppliers are turned off, corporate is turned off because they didn't have time to hear from everybody else. So just learn your pitch, get good at it, and stick to your 1 minute and give opportunity to others. Bring the right questions instead of just talking. Pushing your agenda onto people is really offsetting. Mm-hmm. So really make sure that you are in that, as Darrell mentioned, active listening mode, as opposed to just talking, pushing, selling, right? All of that is a turnoff.
Darrell, your thoughts?
Well, I had wrote down don't monopolize. So, I think the other thing, and I used to always say this, and we used to hear this all the time, and I realize now I'm getting old, but it's always don't forget business cards. I mean, it's some of the basic things that, I won't lie, though, things are changing. I remember it was not long ago that I went to give somebody my business card, and they're like, oh, I don't do business cards. And then they pull out their phone and they had to you tap each other. I don't know. I'm not a tech person, as we found out at the start of this call, but either way, either have business cards or make sure that you're technologically savvy enough to be able to digitally share your e-card. Those are just some of the basics. But one of the stories that, one of our corporate partners talked about, and I think it is so important, is don't underestimate the power of any connection. And this one corporate partner was talking about how she saw that there's a supplier in an event, and the supplier was talking to somebody, but they weren't focused on that person. They were scanning the room, looking for that, that other supplier diversity manager. And they saw that person walk in and they ran over to them. Little did they know that they were actually talking to the chief procurement officer for this company. So don't underestimate who you're talking to. I mean, it might be the CEO, but it also might be a one of the buyers. It could be somebody that has connections or influence that could help you. So don't underestimate that power of any connection.
Yeah, and to that point, Darrell, I would add, you never know where the person will end up being tomorrow. So exactly. Today they might be supplier diversity manager. Tomorrow they might be leading the department or the entire organization. So again, we just don't know what we don't know.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I find that ticks me off when I watch suppliers quote unquote pitch, I wish there was a better word, present, I guess maybe is the way to go, but is when they give every single thing they're capable of doing in that 1 minute. I can do this and this and this and this. And then they say to the purchaser, so what can I do for you? And I think, oh my goodness, take a minute and do some research and find out of those 15 things, what 1 or 2 things you can do for them, or where are those pain points in that area for them, so that they're not just an onslaught of all the things that you can do. Pay attention to what that company might actually be interested in buying from you, goods or services wise. and just focus on that when you're doing your so-called pitching. I'm curious to know, sort of more quickly, what thoughts you might have, and perhaps tips you might have for the opposite side of this, for the purchasers, for the corporate members, when it comes to networking. Sylvia, thoughts on that?
Sure. Can I actually go a little bit back, to the
Sure.
supplier side before
Yeah,
I
of
go to
course.
the buyer? So when it comes to supplier, I'm a big fan of intentionality and networking with intention. So,
Okay.
well, this is all good, what we were talking. These are like some very generic networking tips. I still think that suppliers need to be very intentional about where they invest their time and resources and how do they follow up. So nothing like these business deals are not going to happen by miracle. They are going to happen because you made them happen. So I personally believe in the power of research. You already mentioned it, Deidre. Research is number one. Get to know the company. Number two, do your due diligence. Find out the steps that you have to take in order to do business with them. How do you register? Who is the contact person? What are the gaps, etc. Do your due diligence. Go through their risk assessment, making sure that you are risk prone for the company, that you are ready to do business, scale up if needed, partner up if needed. But then number three, which is very important and closely tied to networking, CRM should become your friend. CRM in terms of customer relations management software. Like, you cannot remember every single conversation that is happening out there, but you need to track of everything so that you know who you are supposed to be following up when was the last touch point, what did you send them. Keep track, take notes of your interactions with the companies, know what you promised, and when you promised to deliver it, write it all down, and make sure you follow through and you follow up. Because if you do that, you will already stand out and you will be doing better job than 80% of people out there. So only 20%, less than 20% of people actually follow up and follow through on their promises, making it, if you just meet the expectations, you are already standing out. So my huge recommendation is take that networking to the next level. Set up your CRM system, take your notes. I know it's cumbersome, it takes time to do, but do it in the evening while watching TV. Just plugging the notes from the last networking event you went to, plugging the notes from your research, and start being more intentional and plug in, some dates into your calendar for follow-up. So now on the buyer side, I've seen like so many things happen. So my absolute favorite buyer networking is where you also do your due diligence. So I've seen corporations who come to matchmaker meetings and they've already researched all the suppliers who are registered. They went to their websites. They researched the companies. They actually selected their meetings strategically. They just did not wait for suppliers to come. They reached out internally within the company to find out what contracts are coming up in the upcoming year. So they are very intentional about what type of suppliers they are looking for at this specific event. So that becomes super strategic from the buyer side. And the chances are that if you show up with intention and if you show up with a strategy, this is what you are going to get at the event. If you just attend and randomly just talk to suppliers, that is what you are going to come up with from the event. Darrell?
Yeah, I guess my one comment would be just, be upfront and I think be sincere in terms of if there's opportunities. I think some of the challenges are that some of our suppliers may feel that they're led on, and I think that and we've seen this a lot. Like, our corporate partners will just be very frank and say, I don't know if there's an opportunity within our organization for your company or for your product or your service, but let me perhaps introduce you to other corporations or other companies. I think just being kind of up front. And I think that would certainly, that helps on both sides. I think the other thing is also just give some direction to the supplier in terms of, how often you want them to follow up, and I think, again, helping to giving as much direction to the supplier as possible in terms of how you want the information provided, how often you want to hear from them. I think it's really valuable. So it's not over inundating them as a corporate partner, but it's giving the supplier some very well needed direction. So yeah, just a couple little tips there.
Yeah, I think it's important that if corporate members and purchasers can, whenever possible, do their best to help the supplier manage their expectations, right? So, help them understand that there are hundreds of suppliers reaching out to these people on a regular basis. This is the fourth time my dog has wanted in and then back out. For those on video can see the door open and close and wondering why. But yeah, I think it's important for purchasers to help the suppliers understand, I can't get back to every single thing you do. Please send me an email every 3 months, every 6 months, those types of things, so that suppliers can mark that in the calendar and move on to the next possible opportunity without sort of hinging on, I had a great conversation with this organization, I think they're going to call me, when it turns out that, they'll call you, but it's going to be 6 or 7 months from now if they remember who you are. So you really do need to keep in touch with them regularly. So as I suspected might happen, we're pretty much at the end of our time for our, scheduled time. I'm the boss, so we can go a little over if we want, but I am going to skip a couple of questions and just get right down to what is your favorite part of the SDAC? What's your favorite part of Supplier Diversity Alliance Canada and the work that we do?
Our Friday morning 8 a.m. calls.
Oh, no. 8 a.m. on Friday. Woo. Deidre's not on camera.
You're on camera about 25% of the time, I'd say, David.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for understanding, guys. I'm vain and I'm willing to admit it. Sylvia, what's your favorite part?
This might come shocking and surprising, but I do like our challenging conversations, conversations where we challenge each other and where we, I'll call it challenging, where, we just go through the ideas of what can be done and then, just brainstorm around what's possible and what's not possible, what is kind of blue sky and what is the reality, what are the next steps. I think these conversations are very insightful and they are really good.
Darrell, outside of 8 a.m. on Fridays?
I think for me, it's what we're all working to a common goal, which is to continue to advance supplier diversity across the country and, ultimately trying to support diverse businesses across Canada. And I think that, as Sylvia mentioned, sometimes the conversations are challenging, but I think that that's important. We need to continue to challenge each other, challenge ourselves if we're going to truly make supplier diversity an integral part of how we do business in this country. And so I think our role as SDAC is extremely important, and I think each of the councils plays a very important role in that and continuing to advance our common and shared goal.
And I'll add one more, Deidre, if I may. And I think from the leadership perspective, it's fantastic to not be alone, right?
Yes.
Like we are all fighting for our communities, and it is not easy many days. And knowing that we are not alone in this fight, but there's four leaders who are doing this work and who are really doing our best for on the same purpose and path as Darrell mentioned. It just such a great relief, that we have each other. So I think it's a fantastic idea, that we are getting together every 2 weeks at 8 a.m. on Fridays, however hard it can be. And I think at the end of the day, like we have this network to talk to each other. So it is good. It is
Yeah,
good.
that's helpful. And their friendships are getting that more solid, even, and maybe as a result of our more challenging conversations. So I think that's great. And my understanding is, and you guys have a better handle on the global scale than I do with IWSCC, as we're, so much newer than you. But are we still the only country that has this kind of collaboration between the supply councils? Is that still the case?
I think we're starting to see that emerge more in other countries, perhaps not widely across the board, but certainly in the US. But I think we're certainly the first in the US. They're starting to come together, and we've seen that over the last couple of years. But I think Canada here, we can be proud that we were the kind of the first to really kind of formalize that working relationship, and I don't think that that's lost on anybody, at our corporate partners and hopefully our suppliers, realizing the value that comes with our four councils collaborating.
Well, with that, it's time to say goodbye, but I really have enjoyed this, and I really appreciate both of you for being here. Thank you so much for taking time out. At least it's not 8 a.m. on a Friday, Darrell, but, but I know you guys are so busy. So yeah. I mean, 10 a.m. is challenging on its own, but 8 a.m. But exactly. Thank you both for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much.
So thank you to everyone here for joining us today. For more on supplier diversity content, you can go to iwscc.ca. You can find us on YouTube, listen in on wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We have new episodes every couple of weeks and lots more going on with the organization. So thank you again to my guests, and thank you to everyone for being here, and we will see you next time.